there's a curious kind of anticipation that only action movie fans truly understand, a moment when a trailer flashes a scene so bold, so explosive, that it becomes the reason you buy the ticket. A daring chase, a brutal fight, a perfectly timed stunt, but then comes the twist you never saw coming. You sit through the entire film waiting for that one unforgettable moment, only to discover it's not there, not trimmed, not altered, completely missing. For decades, trailers have acted as a parallel universe to the films they promote. In the 80 seconds and 90 seconds especially, studios often built their marketing campaigns using early test footage, abandoned sequences, or scenes designed purely to sell excitement rather than reflect the final story. Directors changed course, editors refined pacing, censors stepped in, and entire action beats were erased long after trailers had immortalized them. What remained were promises, glimpses of movies that existed only in fragments, or sometimes never existed at all. Tonight, we're peeling back the curtain on 15 action films whose most memorable trailer moments vanished before reaching the screen. These aren't simple deleted scenes tucked away on a DVD. They're lost realities, alternate paths the films briefly walked before being reshaped behind closed doors. A rooftop chase that disappeared in the edit, a high-impact stunt cut for time, a dramatic explosion, filmed only to test lighting, then showcased to millions. Each of these moments lives on, only through promotional footage, fan recollection, and a handful of preserved frames. What they reveal is a hidden history of action cinema, one where the bolder scenes sometimes never make it into the movie at all. This is Action Undone, returning once more to uncover the action sequences Hollywood showed you and then erased. Fact 1. The Specialist, 1994. The trailer for The Specialist opens with a sweeping nighttime explosion, an eruption so enormous that it blankets an entire Miami block in waves of fire. Sylvester Stallone steps through the blaze with calm precision, framed as a master craftsman in total control of chaos. It was the image that sold the film. The shot audiences remembered long after the trailer ended. But in the theatrical release, that explosion never appears. Not a shorter version, not a re-edited shot, nothing. The truth behind this missing moment lies in the earliest days of production. Before the final script was locked, the effects team conducted large-scale demolition tests to explore how they could integrate Stallone into massive practical fireballs. These tests generated stunning footage, visually grander than anything in the finished film. But as the narrative sharpened, the story shifted toward precision demolitions, smaller, more intimate explosions tied directly to Ray Quick's personal vendettas. The colossal firestorm no longer fit the emotional trajectory, despite the creative change. The marketing department recognized the power of the test footage. They incorporated it into the trailer because it conveyed spectacle, an adrenaline-fueled promise that the film itself never intended to fulfill. Audiences arrived expecting a climactic inferno, only to discover a more restrained, character-driven approach to explosives. This absence sparked years of speculation. Some believed the scene had been cut for pacing or ratings concerns. Others thought it might appear in international edits. Yet no extended version or deleted scene archive has ever revealed the missing explosion. Today, the trailer shot stands as one of Stallone's most famous cinematic illusions, an explosive promise crafted for marketing, preserved in memory, but never meant to exist within the story itself. Fact 2. Sudden Death, 1995. The trailer for Sudden Death wastes no time showcasing intensity. One of its most striking moments features Jean-Claude Van Damme in a brutal bathroom fight, trading blows amid shattered porcelain, flickering fluorescent lights, and the claustrophobic tension of a fight where every object becomes a weapon. It's exactly the kind of close-quarters combat fans expect from him. Yet when the film reached theaters, that entire sequence was missing. This confrontation came from an earlier structural blueprint of the story. Originally, Darren McCord was to face a series of escalating threats during his desperate search for his daughter in the arena. The bathroom fight served as a pivotal moment, demonstrating how far he was willing to push himself as danger closed in. But during the editing phase, producers aimed to streamline the pacing and keep narrative focus on the central hostage crisis storyline. Anything that slowed down tension, particularly scenes separated from the rink, was removed. The fight didn't vanish because it lacked quality. It vanished because it disrupted momentum. Yet the marketing team, having already selected footage from raw cuts, kept it in the trailer. The visuals were too compelling to abandon the shattered mirrors, the heavy breathing, the kinetic strikes. They captured Van Damme at maximum intensity. When viewers noticed the scene's absence, it became one of the film's most discussed mysteries. Many assumed it would appear on DVD bonus features or extended releases, but no version has ever included it. The bathroom fight remains suspended between imagination and reality, a fragment of a more brutal vision of sudden death that lived only long enough to become trailer legend. Fact 3. Street Night, 1993. The Street Night trailer presents an explosive moment that sets the tone for a grittier, more relentless film than the one audiences ultimately saw. In it, Jeff Speakman rams his car directly into a gang member's vehicle, an uncompromising head-on collision with metal twisting, sparks cutting across the frame, and the impact delivering a visceral, emotional punch. Yet in the final cut, the entire crash is gone. The disappearance is tied directly to Cannon Films' unstable final years. Production operated on a thinning budget, forcing the team to make difficult choices during shooting. Although the stunt team successfully executed the collision, the filming lacked key coverage, alternative angles, close-ups, and continuity shots needed for editors to construct a complete sequence. Without these essential components, integrating the crash would have disrupted pacing, clarity, and narrative flow. Even so, the marketing department couldn't resist its cinematic value. The raw footage, even incomplete, looked powerful and dangerous. It suggested a protagonist pushed into desperation, the kind of emotional intensity that could elevate Speakman's presence in the action genre. So the shot was used prominently in the trailer, creating expectations for a defining moment that no longer existed within the story. Fans soon questioned why the collision never appeared, leading to rumors of international cuts or lost work prints. But no evidence has surfaced to suggest the sequence was ever edited into any version of the movie. The missing crash now stands as one of Speakman's most famous ghost stunts, symbolizing both the ambition and the constraints of Cannon's final productions, a cinematic promise preserved only in promotion. Fact 4. Sniper, 1993. The trailer for Sniper features a striking nighttime image. Tom Berenger navigating a jungle shrouded in mist, the moon carving sharp angles across his silhouette as he raises his rifle toward an unseen threat. The moment feels predatory, quiet, calculated, and almost poetic in its tension. Yet audiences who watched the film found nothing resembling this atmospheric sequence. The jungle scenes exist, but the specific mood, lighting, and framing of the trailer's night stalk have no counterpart in the finished movie. This missing shot emerged from the film's earliest visual experiments. Initially, the creative team intended to portray Beckett's mission as a psychological descent, an experience defined by isolation and the haunting quiet of hostile terrain. Several night scenes were filmed with a distinct visual language, heavy fog, stylized lighting, and slower pacing meant to emphasize internal conflict. But as production continued, the director reconsidered this approach. Daylight scenes offered clearer geographical continuity, faster readability, and a more grounded realism that better matched the film's tactical tone. When the nighttime material was removed, the marketing team, working from preliminary footage rather than the final edit, kept the eerie shot in the trailer. It captured attention instantly, promising an atmospheric thriller steeped in psychological tension. That promise shaped audience expectations, even though the final film took a more straightforward, military action direction. The shot's absence has remained a point of fascination for fans who sensed that Sniper once flirted with a more meditative, shadow-bound identity. No alternate cut or deleted scene archive has ever surfaced, leaving only the trailer as evidence of that abandoned stylistic path. Today, the night stalk moment stands as a quiet but enduring mystery, an echo of a version of Sniper that slipped away long before audiences ever saw it. Fact 5. Navy SEALs 1990. In the trailer, a rapid assault sequence shows Charlie Sheen sliding behind cover and Michael Biehn leading the squad through dim industrial corridors, gunfire erupting around them. The scene is tense, cinematic, and high stakes, but it doesn't exist in the theatrical release. Originally, this assault was part of a darker prologue illustrating the risks of a failed mission. Test audiences found it too grim, prompting the studio to replace it with a more upbeat, patriotic opening. The trailer, however, had already included the footage, creating the illusion of a high-stakes action sequence. The prologue remains unseen, leaving the trailer as the only evidence of a more somber, intense version of the story. Fact 5. Navy SEALs 1990. The trailer for Navy SEALs bursts with intensity as the team storms a dimly lit industrial compound, muzzle flashes lighting the darkness. Charlie Sheen sliding behind metal crates, Michael Biehn signaling his squad forward with precise hand gestures. The sequence promises a tense rescue mission, full of tactical coordination and high-risk engagement, yet none of it appears in the finished film. Not the location, not the staging, not a single frame of the dramatic assault teased in the trailer. The truth leads back to the film's original opening. Early drafts framed the SEAL team through a gritty prologue that ended in failure, a stark reminder of the stakes these operators faced. The sequence was shot with raw urgency, shadowy corridors, frantic motion, and a sense of mounting desperation. But during test screenings, audiences reacted unexpectedly. The tone felt too heavy, too bleak. Overshadowing the more energetic spirit the studio hoped to achieve, executives removed the entire prologue, restructuring the film into a more fast-paced, team-focused action narrative. But the marketing department had already received footage of the assault, and the visuals were too cinematic to ignore. The montage conveyed professionalism, danger, and spectacle, everything needed to sell the movie's concept. So the deleted opening lived on in promotional material, even though it was erased from the story itself. This decision sparked decades of speculation. Fans assumed the mission existed in extended cuts or international versions, yet no release has ever included it. Crew members have hinted that the footage was fully edited before being shelved, making its disappearance even more perplexing. Today, the trailer stands as the only surviving record of a darker, more somber version of Navy SEALs, a film that once opened with failure before being reshaped into something more conventional. Fact 6. Hard Target 1993. In the Hard Target trailer, one sequence leaps off the screen. Jean-Claude Van Damme sprinting across a series of rooftops while gunmen fire from multiple angles, sparks showering in slow motion as he throws himself between buildings. The moment feels unmistakably John Woo, balletic violence paired with graceful athleticism. Yet when the movie was released, that rooftop pursuit had vanished completely. This missing action beat was originally part of a much larger chase that highlighted the hunter's relentless pursuit of Van Damme's character. Woo's initial cut featured extended shootouts, operatic stunts, and emotional beats woven into the chaos. But the MPAA repeatedly pushed back, warning that the level of violence risked an NC-17 rating. To secure theatrical release, Universal ordered drastic cuts, removing entire sequences rather than merely trimming frames. The rooftop pursuit became one of the casualties. It required additional effects work to complete and no longer matched the toned-down action profile the studio demanded. Despite its removal, the marketing team working from early cuts kept the rooftop leap in the trailer. Because it captured everything fans expected from a Van Damme, Woo collaboration, scale, style, and danger, its absence quickly became a point of confusion for audiences who anticipated the moment as a highlight. Over the years, whispers of an uncut version circulated among collectors, yet no official or unofficial release has ever restored the rooftop chase. Only fleeting behind-the-scenes photos confirm it was fully staged. The rooftop leap endures today as one of action cinema's most striking phantom scenes, a breathtaking promise preserved only in promotional memory. Fact 7. The Glimmer Man 1996. The trailer for The Glimmer Man presents a strikingly eerie image. Steven Seagal moving through a decrepit apartment, knife lowered, stepping quietly across a floor littered with debris. Lamps flicker against cracked walls, casting long shadows that swell and shrink as he advances. It's the kind of scene that promises a psychological edge, a tense cat-and-mouse sequence built on silence and anticipation. Yet, when audiences watch the full movie, The entire moment had disappeared without explanation. This missing sequence belonged to an earlier creative direction that leaned heavily into horror-inspired suspense. Jack Cole was originally meant to navigate crime scenes alone, absorbing details in near-total darkness. These scenes were designed to emphasize his enigmatic background and deepen his intuitive connection to the serial killer the film hints at. The apartment stalk was one of the most fully realized pieces of this darker tone, but as the studio reconsidered the film's identity, these atmospheric scenes became casualties of a larger tonal shift. Executives believed the movie needed to function more as a mismatched partners action thriller, spotlighting the contrast between Seagal and Keenan Ivory Wayans. The eerie solo investigations, while visually compelling, were removed for pacing and tone. Marketing, however, had already chosen its weapons. The apartment stalk sequence looked visually rich, mysterious, cinematic, and evocative of a film with deeper psychological layers. It stayed in the trailer, shaping audience expectations for a movie that no longer existed. Fans who later searched for the missing scene in deleted footage archives or director's cut rumors found nothing. No extended release has ever surfaced. Today, the apartment sequence stands as one of the Glimmerman's most famous specters, an unsettling fragment of a darker story, buried beneath studio retooling. Fact 8. Rapid Fire 1992. The trailer for Rapid Fire showcases one of Brandon Lee's most electrifying moments. A daring plunge through a warehouse window as bullets tear through the air behind him. Glass explodes outward. Lee rolls across the ground, and in one seamless motion he springs into a counterattack. The shot is kinetic and confident, a perfect encapsulation of the raw physicality that defined his rising career. Yet the theatrical cut of the film contains none of it. This missing sequence comes from an early iteration of the warehouse confrontation that aimed to establish Jake Lowe's instinctive combat intelligence. The original choreography blended environmental improvisation with sharp martial arts transitions, but the production encountered unanticipated problems. Several window break attempts left inconsistent shatter patterns, and the camera angles intended to capture the stunt didn't produce enough continuity for editors to assemble a complete, polished moment. Faced with the choice of costly reshoots or narrative streamlining, the filmmakers opted to remove the entire window stunt. They restructured the warehouse fight to keep pacing tight and avoid technical seams that would distract the viewer. But in the world of marketing, the rules are different. The trailer editors had access to the raw footage and recognized the star power value of that single window crash. Brandon Lee bursting through glass under fire was a promotional gift, energetic, iconic, and instantly memorable. It remained in the trailer even though the final film no longer supported it. Audiences were left puzzled when the stunt failed to appear, leading many to assume it must exist in a director's cut or international print. Yet no such footage has ever surfaced. The missing window dive became a symbolic artifact, one more example of how Brandon Lee's potential was often glimpsed in moments that never reached the screen. Today, the stunt lives on solely through the trailer, a bold promise from a film that couldn't deliver it. Fact 9. Fire Down Below 1997. The trailer for Fire Down Below teases a massive forest explosion, a blazing firestorm racing between tree trunks. While Steven Seagal dives behind a fallen log, the flames arc upward in a violent sweep, suggesting a large-scale ambush that raises the stakes dramatically. Yet, when the film premiered, viewers discovered the entire sequence was gone. Not re-edited, not repurposed, simply absent. This missing explosion was part of an earlier storyline built around illegal blasting operations hidden in the Appalachian wilderness. To visualize the environmental devastation at the core of the plot, the production staged a significant pyrotechnic event deep within the forest. The footage captured was striking wide fire waves, controlled detonations, and a sense of overwhelming force. But as rewrites progressed, the production found itself under scrutiny from environmental groups concerned about the impact of pyrotechnics in protected regions. At the same time, the studio wanted a more character-focused narrative and shifted emphasis away from the broader ecological destruction subplot. The ambitious explosion sequence no longer fit the scaled-back direction, and the scene was removed entirely. Marketing, however, had other priorities. The forest detonation was visually spectacular, offering the illusion of a film far larger in scope than the more intimate thriller the story ultimately became. The trailer retained the explosion, shaping promotional identity even though it had no place in the finished cut. For years, fans theorized that the missing footage might emerge in deleted scene releases, yet nothing has surfaced. No extended edition includes the explosion, and crew accounts suggest the scene was struck from early edits before post-production completion. The forest blast remains a phantom spectacle, a reminder of how Hollywood sometimes markets the film it wishes it made, not the one that ultimately reaches theaters. Fact 10. Cobra, 1986. The trailer for Cobra flashes a gripping image. Marion Cobretti stepping into a smoke-filled alley. Neon reflections, shimmering off his sunglasses as he raises his custom pistol toward an unseen threat. The atmosphere is thick urban grime, flickering lights, and a sense of impending violence. It's the kind of shot that suggests a tense cat-and-mouse encounter, one that might reveal the ruthless tactics of the night slasher cult. Yet when audiences watched the actual movie, that entire alleyway confrontation was nowhere to be found. This missing scene originated during the film's earliest assembly, a significantly darker cut that leaned more heavily into psychological tension and slow-burn suspense. Director George P. Cosmatos initially framed Cobretti as a relentless figure stalking predators through the shadows, integrating moments that emphasized dread more than explosive action. But the studio grew concerned. The violence was too extreme, the pacing too methodical, and the tone too grim for mainstream audiences. Multiple edits were ordered, and entire sequences, including the alley ambush, were removed to lighten the film's overall rhythm. Despite this, the marketing department had already selected footage from early dailies. The alley shot looked iconic. Stallone framed in a noir-like environment, a hardened enforcer navigating urban decay. It became a centerpiece of the promotional campaign, shaping expectations for a film that ultimately took a faster, more streamlined approach. Fans immediately noticed the discrepancy. For decades, rumors circulated about lost reels containing the full ambush, with some believing the footage might reappear in an uncut edition, yet no confirmed material has ever surfaced. Archivists have even suggested that the removed sequences were discarded during post-production. Today, that single alleyway image survives only in promotional material, a lingering reminder of a darker, more atmospheric Cobra that was softened long before audiences ever saw it. Fact 11. Universal Soldier, The Return, 1999. The trailer for Universal Soldier, The Return, features a high-intensity sequence that instantly grabs attention. Jean-Claude Van Damme, sprinting along a steel catwalk as explosions ripple behind him, sparks cascading through the air, before he launches himself through a collapsing railing. It's athletic, chaotic, and visually spectacular, exactly the kind of moment fans expected from the revival of the franchise. Yet that entire set piece never appears in the theatrical movie. This vanished moment belongs to an earlier, more elaborate action sequence that was filmed but never completed. Originally, Luc Devereaux was supposed to navigate a multi-level research facility while being hunted by upgraded unisols. The catwalk stunt was designed as a centerpiece for this section, a blend of practical explosions, wire-assisted dives, and close-quarters combat. But as production progressed, the studio became increasingly concerned about cost overruns. The sequence required multiple effects passes, cleanup shots, and additional stunt work that budget constraints could no longer support. At the same time, test screenings revealed a preference for a quicker, more straightforward structure. Producers opted to streamline the middle act, removing the catwalk chase entirely. But promotions were already in motion. The marketing department, working from early footage, saw the catwalk dive as essential trailer material. It showcased Van Damme's physical presence and created the illusion of a larger-scale film. Audiences expected a multi-layered facility showdown. Instead, they received a reduced, more contained action sequence. When the stunt failed to appear in any home release or extended cut, it became one of the franchise's most talked-about omissions. To this day, the catwalk chase remains a trailer fossil, a visually striking moment preserved only in marketing. hinting at a more ambitious film hindered by budget and editorial decisions. Fact 12. Red Heat, 1988. The trailer for Red Heat teases a gritty motel shootout. Arnold Schwarzenegger crouched behind a parked car as bullets crack through the air, followed by a forceful forward charge that embodies the no-nonsense brutality of Captain Ivan Danko. The moment feels raw and grounded, suggesting a more violent, street-level tone than Schwarzenegger's usual larger-than-life action. Yet the completed film contains no trace of this entire sequence. This missing scene was part of an early draft that leaned heavily into Chicago's criminal underbelly. Director Walter Hill initially planned a harsher portrayal of Danko's investigation, one steeped in tension, mistrust, and the clash between Soviet discipline and American chaos. The motel ambush was meant to illustrate how far Danko was willing to go in pursuit of justice, stepping into the line of fire with unwavering precision. But as the film evolved, studio executives steered it toward a more comedic, buddy cop dynamic, emphasizing the chemistry between Schwarzenegger and James Belushi. Scenes that skewed too dark or too threatening were trimmed to maintain a lighter balance. The motel shootout was a casualty of that tonal pivot. Promotional editors, however, had already chosen their standout imagery. The motel ambush provided a dramatic, instantly recognizable shot of Schwarzenegger in action. It stayed in the trailer even after being removed from the narrative. Fans spent years searching for the missing sequence in extended editions, international releases, and rumored work prints. Yet no known cut has ever restored the footage. The motel shootout remains one of the most iconic phantom scenes of Schwarzenegger's 1980 seconds. Output a glimpse of a grittier Red Heat that was reshaped before reaching the public. Fact 13. Showdown in Little Tokyo, 1991. The trailer for Showdown in Little Tokyo delivers a flash of pure martial arts precision. Dolph Lundgren disarming a Yakuza enforcer's katana in a neon-lit backroom, twisting the blade from the attacker's grip with an effortless, fluid motion. It suggests a longer, more complex fight, one emphasizing technique and discipline in a film defined by over-the-top action. Yet the final cut contains no trace of this maneuver. The setting remains, the combatants appear, but the defining weapon, disarm, simply never occurs. This moment originated from an extended fight sequence designed to showcase the contrast between brute force and refined martial skill. The choreography blended traditional Japanese counters with close-range strikes intended to highlight the cultural clash at the movie's core. But during editing, the studio pushed for a tighter, faster-paced narrative. Concerns about excessive violence and an already short runtime led to multiple trims. The katana disarm, despite its elegance, was among the first to be removed. Marketing, however, had a different mission. The clip was too striking to lose. Lundgren's controlled precision, the atmospheric lighting, and the thematic symbolism of deflecting a traditional weapon fit perfectly into promotional material. It conveyed an intensity the final film only partially reflects. When audiences realized the disarm was missing, speculation erupted. Some believed it might have been kept for an unrated cut. Others assumed it was lost in international edits. But no version has ever surfaced containing the missing beat. Today, the katana disarm remains a symbolic shard of an alternate showdown in Little Tokyo, a moment that captured the film's potential more powerfully than what ended up on screen. Fact 14. Death Warrant, 1990. One of the most attention-grabbing shots in the Death Warrant trailer shows Jean-Claude Van Damme launching a spinning hook kick on an elevated prison walkway. Sparks bursting from metal rails as he knocks an attacker backward. It's a dynamic stunt, showcasing the power and technique that defined his early career. Yet, the theatrical release contains no such sequence. The angle, the movement, and the entire conflict are absent. This missing action beat belonged to a broader, multi-level ambush written into the film's rising tension. The idea was to depict Burke's increasing sense of vulnerability inside a hostile penitentiary, facing enemies in avenues where escape was nearly impossible. However, during the editing process, producers determined that the walkway fight shifted the tone too heavily toward heroic spectacle. They wanted to maintain the grim, claustrophobic atmosphere leading up to the reveal of the Sandman, A flashy kick delivered too much triumph too early. Despite its removal, the stunt made its way into promotional reels. Marketers understood the power of a signature. Van Damme kick, clean lines, impressive control, and instant visual appeal. It became a cornerstone of the film's advertising, even though it no longer reflected the narrative. Fans spent years searching for the missing fight in home releases, believing such a high-impact stunt must exist somewhere, but no television cut, DVD extra, or archival release has ever included it. The spinning hook kick lives on solely as a trailer specter, a dynamic promise of intensity that the film ultimately withheld. Fact 15. Fair Game 1995. The trailer for Fair Game highlights a nighttime speedboat chase bursting with cinematic flair. William Baldwin maneuvering through rippling waves under gunfire, while Cindy Crawford dives for cover as debris explodes around them. It looks like a major centerpiece, sleek, high energy, drenched in glossy 90 seconds action aesthetics. Yet this entire chase is missing from the finished film. Originally, the water pursuit was meant to expand the film's visual variety, providing a dramatic contrast to the land-based chases dominating the narrative. The production team filmed several stunt elements on open water, including high-speed maneuvers, practical explosions, and dialogue beats meant to escalate tension. But mid-production financial cuts forced the studio to reassess what could realistically be completed. The sequence required additional coverage and effects work, which the revised schedule couldn't accommodate. Even after its removal, promotional editors recognized its marketing value. The sleek visuals of Baldwin at the helm and Crawford bracing amid gunfire sold a level of spectacle. Pared-down narrative could no longer deliver. The footage became a trailer highlight, crafting expectations of a more expansive action thriller. When audiences realized the chase was missing, speculation spread quickly. Some assumed it was cut for pacing, others believed it might appear in an unrated version. Yet no release has ever included the footage, and crew accounts suggest the sequence never reached full editorial assembly. Today, the speedboat chase stands as one of the 1,990 seconds most memorable Phantom set pieces. A glossy, high-energy action beat that existed only long enough to sell a film that ultimately moved in a different direction. Bonus fact: Hard to Kill, 1990. The trailer for Hard to Kill includes a warehouse corridor gunfight that feels like it belongs to a far grittier film than the one audiences ultimately received. In the clip, Steven Seagal advances through a narrow industrial hallway, shotgun raised as sparks burst from overhead pipes. Muzzle flashes carve jagged lines across the darkness. He ducks behind stacked crates, then rises in a slow-motion counterattack that radiates controlled fury. Yet none of it appears in the actual movie. Not in TV edits, not in international cuts, not in any known work print. This missing sequence was tied to an earlier subplot in which Mason Storm tracked one of the orchestrators of his attempted assassination. The warehouse ambush was meant to mark his transition from recovery to retaliation, bridging the quiet tension of his return with the explosive momentum of the final act. But as production tightened, the studio trimmed connective scenes to accelerate pacing, and the entire warehouse confrontation was removed. Unlike typical deleted scenes, this one has never resurfaced. No production, stills, no partial assemblies, not even incomplete dailies have been released. Some former crew members recall that the footage may have been abandoned before full editorial processing, while others suggest it was cut after a rough assembly but never archived. Despite its disappearance, the trailer preserved the moment because it encapsulated the fantasy of Seagal at his most unstoppable, methodical, silent, and devastating. It became a promise the final film didn't keep, a fleeting vision of a harsher revenge thriller buried beneath studio revisions. Today, the warehouse corridor shootout remains one of action cinema's enduring ghost scenes, a fragment of a film that technically existed, but never long enough to be seen. You've just seen how 15 action films built excitement around scenes that vanished before audiences ever reached the theater. Some were casualties of rewrites, others fell to budget cuts, and a few belonged to darker, abandoned versions of the movies we thought we knew.